The Executive Governor of the State of Osun, Mr. Gboyega Oyetola, has formulated new policies for education in the state. The policy formulation was made known during the press briefing section with pressmen in the State Government House, Osogbo. Speaking, the Commissioner for Information and Civil Orientation, Mrs. Olufunke Egbemudi, said the State Executive Council has reverted some policies for betterment after the council meeting, which was held with the state governor. In her briefing, she outlined the new policies that has been formulated.
The first issue that was deliberated and discussed was the desirability or otherwise of continuing with the current policy of merging primary 5 and 6 with junior secondary school to form middle schools, and how it is not in conformity with the national policy on education. Council unanimously agreed with the expert report that the state of Osun will revert to the 6334 structure as opposed to the 4534 education policy, and government will provide adequate physical and instructional facilities at all levels to make the new policy we are reverting to effective. The second issue was the desirability or otherwise of continuing with the current policy of common uniform for all schools in Osun, contrary to the practice of each school having its own unique identity with separate uniforms, as we used to have it and as practiced nationwide. Council agreed that the state will henceforth allow every school to return to its old established and recognized public uniform and hold systematic stakeholder engagement and ensure strict regulation of the quality and standard of the new school uniforms. The third issue was the review of the current arrangement for managing the new model high schools in quote. Council agreed that the operations of the Omoluabi Education Services Limited will be wound up since it has not been fulfilling the mandate for which it was established, that the subsisting arrangement between the state government should be terminated immediately, and adverts should be placed inviting interested and competent facility management companies to bid for the job at a much lower rate. That the relevant department in the Ministry of Education should be strengthened to provide appropriate leadership and supervisory oversight in the model schools. Council also adopted the recommendation that the state will in the future engage facility management contractors that will have formalized terms and conditions and deliverables in black and white, and there will be penalties also included in such contracts put in place for defaulting contractors, and that there is no need to establish a model high school commission to manage the schools. The Ministry of Education will be strengthened, and the capacity of the relevant officers will be appropriately and properly developed for more efficient and effective service delivery. The fourth issue deliberated upon was on whether or not to reintroduce early childhood care development education, ECCDE, in line with the practice in the remaining 35 states of the Federation. Council agreed that early childhood education be restored in the state, and the state will make adequate arrangements, employ well-trained professionals to handle the early childhood education that had been suspended before. The fifth issue was the desirability or otherwise of continuing with the current policy of mixing male and female learners in schools established for single-sex learners only. Council unanimously agreed with the recommendations of the expert committee that schools be restored to their former status, whereby only the single sex identified with those school names should be admitted. Students already affected by the name change will be issued letters of attestation by the Ministry of Education. Male students who are currently in SS1 and SS2 in schools established for female learners only will be relocated immediately, and the same will happen to the female students now currently in schools established for males. The sixth issue was the desirability or not of increasing school fees charged by tertiary institutions in Osun to meet the global best practices in achieving quality education. Council robustly discussed this and referred it to a committee to take a deeper dive and work out the operational details and how to put the recommendations in place and effectively. The seventh issue was the desirability or otherwise of continuing with the post of Headmaster General. The state currently operates with 9 Headmasters General and 3 Tutors General, and we discussed whether or not the arrangement should be sustained with multiple permanent secretaries. Council agreed that government will set up a panel of experts to do administrative restructuring of the ministry and streamline how each of the agencies and directorates in the ministry operate. The panel will do further work and tinker with the recommendation to fit into the needs and yearnings of the people of the state. Issue 8, desirability of schools reverting from being called high schools to the old nomenclature of grammar school. The council unanimously agreed that government should revert the schools in the state of Osun to their old names. Ninth issue, technical and vocational education training. A review to make technical and vocational education a post-secondary education, or whether it should be post-junior secondary education. It was agreed that since we were reverting to the 6334 national policy, we will go with strengthening the technical and vocational education and equip adequately all the facilities for the trades that are yet to be upgraded in some of the colleges. This particular issue is dear to the governor's heart because it is part of his campaign promises, and we will do advocacy to let the people know, especially parents, that technical colleges are desirable for if the state is going to advance, if the state is going to join the committee of nations and states that are compliant with the ICT know-how and everything that you can do as a technical professional. We will do as much as possible awareness to ensure that parents do not think that students that go to technical colleges are going there because they are not smart or not brilliant, because it's an arm of education that the governor and this state wants to encourage. And the last issue, the 10th one, is whether Okpoimo should be arrested or not. The experts committee recommended and we adopted that the device should be reintroduced in a more cost-effective variant, and it should be supported by adequate advocacy among all stakeholders. The council also agreed that there is a need for teachers' copies of Okpoimo to be made available, and the government will consider collaborating with parents in making the Okpoimo readily available and more effective. Experts from universities and other agencies within the state will also be leveraged for effective implementation. These are the 10 recommendations from the experts' report, and they were all unanimously agreed upon at today's EXCO meeting.
Mrs. Olufunke, while answering questions that came up from the pressmen after the policies were read, said the new policies will take effect as from next academic section. This is to give time for schools to make adequate preparation ahead, she said. Reacting to the questions also, the Commissioner for Education, Honorable Folorunsho Bamisayemi, said the policies to be reverted was taken after careful and just consideration with all stakeholders across the state.
After careful and deliberate and highly resourceful consideration, that we finally agreed that we will be reverting some of these policies. Now, whether we have considered the financial implications, a policy will only be successful if it is supported by the people you are governing. And as trustees of power, as somebody, as people, as a party holding power in trust for the people, I think we should listen to them. The governor did a thank you tour. The recurring decimal in terms of request was that some of these policies should be looked at. Again, the DFID came into Osun, did citizens need assessment. Number one on their report was the issue of uniform and some of these other policies. So when we came on board too, the ST and I went around Osun. We met with all the stakeholders in 8 different locations across the state. And it was a unanimous request that we should reconsider some of these policies. So reverting back to the old position today is not a just thing. It's not something we just woke up, one morning and we just decided to do. No, it was carefully considered. We put together experts, people knowledgeable in the area of education. Paya Obaya, for God's sake, worked with the UNESCO. Obilade was VC, Taisolari. And then you know about Obibida Kobe and the rest of them. So we have considered everything that we should consider. And in order to show that we are a responsible and responsive government, we have agreed finally to let the people have their way and give them what they want. And that's why we have done this. The second one, the issue of Formulate, well, there are some things that are irreversible. And again, schools move to new locations. Schools move to new locations. Now Formulate is on a new location with a better infrastructural facilities there. So I think they can confidently, continue where they are. You can't reverse that because there's a mall. in that location now. So they will continue where they are, and it is to the advantage of that school, because they now have a state-of-the-art school with better infrastructures, with better facilities than what they used to have. So it is to the advantage. It is a plus for Formulate. And if you ask them, they will not even want to go back to where they were before.
Speaking, the Special Advisor on Education to Governor Oyetola, Mr. Jamiu Olawumi, said the welfare of teachers and pensioners are of utmost concern to the governor. In 3 weeks' time, 2,500 teachers will be recruited for more efficiency in the education sector, he said.
Welfare of teachers. I'd like to inform you that ever since he assumed duties as governor, the governor of the state of Osun, Mr. Oyetola, has taken seriously, and he has always attended to the needs of the teachers. This is inherent in the fact that the agreed percentage from the salary of teachers to add to our teacher salary scale is fulfilled in Osun. And when we assumed office, we had stakeholders meeting with them at 8 different locations, zones of the state. And I can tell you, beating my chest, that we're on the same page with the teachers on their welfare. And more so, one of the things that will complement what they are doing is training and retraining, which we have started. And we also set to recruit 2,500 teachers in a couple of weeks to this time. So welfare of teachers is paramount to this government.
Mrs. Olufunke Egbemude, in her final note, said the policies were carefully investigated and viewed by expert committees having Professor Oluaina as the chairman, which was earlier inaugurated by the Ministry of Education in the state. Kayode Ayeni, ABN TV News, Osun State, Nigeria.